Why do older men attract more by doing less? You try, you joke, you chase, she pulls away. The harder you seek approval, the faster you lose respect. Machiavelli warned, once she senses your need, she owns your power. Mystery creates obsession. Control creates respect. In this video, I'll reveal 7 subtle tricks older men use, rooted in female psychology and sharpened by Stoic self-control. If you're tired of giving too much and being ignored, this is your turning point. Stay until the end. Welcome to Simplify Success. 1. The contrast of older men's approach. The moment you try to prove your worth is the moment she stops believing in it. That truth cuts deeper than any rejection, because it means every effort to show her you are different only proves that you are the same. Picture a man in his mid-30s named Daniel, working in a San Francisco tech company. At happy hour, he tries to win attention from a younger woman on his team. He laughs too loudly at her jokes, he throws compliments like confetti, he even interrupts his own stories just to keep her smiling. For a while it seems to work. She laughs, she leans in, she even texts him after the event. He thinks he is building connection, but then one Friday night she replies slower. The next week her tone cools. At lunch she talks more with another co-worker, the one who barely said a word but whose silence carried weight. That is when Daniel feels it, the emptiness in her eyes when she looks at him, the polite smile that hides boredom. It is not anger, it is worse, it is indifference. He thought his availability was charm. She read it as audition. He thought loyalty was love. She thought loyalty was leverage. When was the last time her eyes went flat while you were still talking? Say it honestly. I will show you the move that flips audition into gravity. This collapse is what most men never see coming. They believe more words equal more interest. They believe more effort equals more desire. Yet in the psychology of attraction, oversupply kills value. When every moment is filled, when every silence is erased, when every compliment is given freely, what is left for her to chase? Machiavelli would have called it a loss of scarcity, the death of mystery. A man who tries to give everything ends up with nothing, because he has trained her to expect without earning. In the theater of desire, the actor who reveals all his lines in the first act is written out before the curtain falls. What if the silence you fear is not rejection, but the true source of power? What if the pause you avoid is the moment that makes her lean in? Soon, you will see why holding back is not weakness, but the architecture of obsession. Daniel's story mirrors what so many men live without naming. He believed energy was confidence. She saw it as need. He believed attention was intimacy. She saw it as surrender. Availability was not security, it was boredom, and boredom is fatal. The strategic shift is simple but brutal. Stop chasing, stop filling, stop performing. Try this once. Next time you feel the urge to fill silence, let it stand. Next time you want to reassure, hold eye contact instead. Next time you think a compliment will win her, wait. You will notice she studies your face longer. Not because she respects you yet, but because she cannot read you. That uncertainty is gravity. Remember, every man who talks too much becomes forgettable. Every man who waits becomes unforgettable. The next part will show you why presence alone, without a single word, pulls women closer than all the jokes and flattery in the world. Miss it, and you will keep auditioning for a role you were never meant to play. 2. The power of presence. The moment you tried to hold her attention with words was the moment your presence disappeared. The room did not get colder, it got louder. Presence is the thing that quiets a crowd without asking, and when it is missing, every joke and every compliment sounds like begging dressed as charm. Seattle afternoon, rain against the cafe windows. Ethan is 37, a project manager who believes speed is confidence. Across from him sits Maya, 26, sharp eyes, quiet smile. He taps the cup, adjusts his watch, speaks fast so there is no empty space to expose him. At the next table, an older man waits for his order. He reads, looks up once, returns to the page. He does not perform, he is simply there. Maya glances at Ethan, then at the older man, then back again. Her smile holds, but only in the mouth, not in the eyes. Ethan leans in and adds one more compliment that sounds like a plea. She says, "That is sweet," then asks the older man what he is reading. He looks at her, holds the pause just long enough to be felt, names the author, then asks how her day is going. She answers with a warmth that Ethan has been trying to buy with volume. That night, Ethan texts an invite to dinner. The message stays delivered. Morning at work, she waves, polite and distant, and keeps walking. The cold fact lands in his chest. His effort proved need, not value. He believed talking would make him seen. She believed talking revealed a man who could not hold himself. Next time she goes quiet, will you hold the pause or rush to rescue? If you dare, say it. I will show you how to turn stillness into pull. Here is what presence does that words cannot say. It signals that time belongs to you. It tells her that you do not need her attention to feel real. It gives safety without surrender and intrigue without a trick. Machiavelli warned that perception beats intention. In the theater of desire, the one who carries stillness bends the scene. Scarcity creates value, and silence is the rarest currency in a world that cannot stop talking. In 30 seconds, I will show you how silence becomes a signal and how scarcity becomes leverage. Now, act. He believed constant attention was devotion that proved depth. She read constant attention as proof that there was nothing to earn. He treated silence like a threat that must be erased. She treated silence like a sign that a man was in control of himself. When performance replaced presence, attraction did not die loudly, it thinned out until nothing was left to hold. Do this tonight. Put the phone face down. When she speaks, let your eyes settle and do not reach for a rescue. Answer after a breath that counts to 3. If anxiety rises, that is normal. It means the habit is losing its grip. If that sounds impossible, the next section gives you a frame that turns silence into certainty. You will see people lean in to understand what you are not saying. Next comes the subtle tease of contrast. It shows how small doses of warmth inside a field of restraint create the exact pull that younger men try to fake with volume. Skip what comes next, and you will keep filling space that should be working for you. 3. The subtle tease of contrast. The moment you gave her your whole sun, her sky went dark. Warmth without shadow kills desire. She cannot want what is already hers. Contrast is not cruelty, that is oxygen. When every message is a yes and every look is soft, she stops looking. She is not bored by you, that is mercy. She is bored by certainty. She does not need more attention, that is noise. She needs edges. Austin co-working space on a Thursday evening. Caleb is 34, a product designer who calls himself a good guy. He meets Ren in the kitchen line, light laugh, quick spark. He goes all in. He remembers every detail, sends a playlist an hour later, replies in minutes, compliments that pile up like sugar on the counter. She smiles at the first 2, tilts her head at the third, then answers with a short thank you that feels colder than the air conditioning. The next day, they sit at a long table with others. An older consultant named Marcus joins, quiet posture, slow eyes. Ren teases Marcus about his notebook. He smiles and says maybe it holds secrets, then changes the subject and asks her about a deadline. She lights up to answer. Caleb jumps in with 3 solutions. Marcus listens, then says, interesting, you might be doing too much. He lets that hang. Ren laughs and taps the pen against her bottom lip. Later, Caleb sends a long text that explains his idea and adds another compliment. Delivered. No reply until morning. She writes, that is sweet, maybe next week. When he sees her at the coffee machine, she gives a quick hug that is all shoulder, that is no chest. Marcus walks by and says he will be gone for a few days. She says, that is dangerous, with a grin that is wider than before. Caleb finally understands that his warmth did not fail because it was false. It failed because it had no edge. He thought access was intimacy. She thought access was clearance. When did you flood her with clarity until she stopped chasing? Admit the scene. I will map where your power leaked. Machiavelli warned that people prize what is scarce and that predictability breeds contempt. Contrast is the mask that reveals more than it hides. One moment of warmth that is earned, one step back that restores tension, one pause that lets the mind write a better story than your mouth ever could. In the theater of desire, the scene that breathes is the scene that binds. What comes next is not noise that is the move that makes them addicted to your absence. He believed consistency meant safety, that proved he could be trusted. She read consistency without friction as a forecast that tomorrow would feel exactly like today. He gave clarity that removed all doubt. She felt certainty that removed all chase. When the rhythm flattened, the story died, and when the story died, there was nothing left to feel. Try this on your next interaction. Give one true compliment that names something earned, then let the silence take its full shape before you say another word. Answer a playful jab with a smile that says maybe, then turn to a different topic and let her follow. End the exchange while the energy is still rising, that way her mind keeps walking toward you after her feet have walked away. If that feels risky, hold steady. The next section gives you a frame that turns restraint into signal and turns uncertainty into pull. You will notice she stops testing you, not because she respects you, but because she can no longer read you. Up next is the power of slowed down presence. It shows how time becomes your ally and how your pace reprograms hers. Skip it and you will keep giving sweetness without shape. That is kindness that tastes like water. Stay, and you will learn how to make one warm note inside a field of quiet ring louder than any speech you could deliver. 4. The power of slowed down presence. The second you try to keep up with her speed, your presence dissolves. Fast talk feels like fear wearing confidence. The man who owns time owns the room. When you rush to fill a second, you trade respect for relief. Slow is not lazy, that it is power under control. If she never has to wait for you, she never has to want you. Presence begins where hurry ends. Wait longer. Chicago Museum courtyard on a bright Sunday. Noah is 29, support engineer from Milwaukee. He meets Lena by the fountain. She talks fast, eyes bright. Noah mirrors her pace because he thinks speed sells. He silences a notification, then checks the screen anyway. Compliments spill. For a minute she smiles. Then her gaze drifts to a silver-haired man on a bench who closes a paperback with care. 3-4, looks up, nods once, returns to the page. Lena asks Noah about work. He answers fast and adds a plan for coffee. She says that sounds nice and looks past him. She asks Cole what he is reading. He takes a breath that Noah can hear. He names the author and asks how her visit has been, then waits. She slows. Noah adds one more story, faster. Cole does not compete. He studies the sculpture, then her, then lets silence do the work. At the exit, Lena tells Noah that they will text. To Drexel she says that coffee would be good if his time allows. Her smile reaches her eyes. Noah stands while the truth lands cold. He thought speed was confidence. She thought speed was panic. When did you reply fast just to escape the tension? Say it now. I will give you the count that keeps control. Machiavelli warned that whoever commands tempo commands perception. In the game of power, the clock is a quiet weapon. Slow speech frames you as the chooser. Measured pauses are a mask that reveals strength. In the theater of desire, the actor who moves after the beat writes the script for the other side. The flood that rushes everywhere waters no field. The river that is dammed lights a city. In 30 seconds, I will show you how pacing turns silence into a clear signal and how a slower voice makes her follow your rhythm without knowing why. He believed matching her energy proved compatibility. She read matching without friction as bending to stay liked. He filled every second to prevent rejection. She felt the lack of space as a lack of control. The faster he moved, the less he was seen. The man who slowed the scene became the scene. Tonight, use the count. Breathe in for 4, that hold for 1, that speak on the easy exhale. When she asks a question, let your eyes settle before your mouth moves. End while the energy still rises, so the story continues in her head. The next part turns restraint into signal and suspense into pull. You will notice her pace soften. That not from respect, that from the simple fact she cannot predict your next step. Up next is withholding validation. You will learn how a small cut in approval sharpens desire and how to reward without becoming a dispenser. Skip it, and you train people to treat your attention like air. Stay, and the pause you fear becomes the lever that moves the room. 5. Withholding validation. The moment you made approval easy was the moment she made distance easy. Validation without effort does not feed attraction, that it starves it. She does not want applause that arrives on schedule, that she wants a standard that must be met. If every line earns a cheer, there is nothing left to earn. Saturday in Philadelphia at a busy farmer's market. Julian is 35, a dental technician who wants to be seen as kind. He meets Tessa at a coffee stall, quick wit and steady eyes. He laughs at every line and says, "You are hilarious, you are brilliant, you are different." She smiles at the first 2, then the smile stays only in the mouth. A vendor shouts a deal on peaches. An older man beside them says that they look honest and might lie anyway. Tessa laughs, small and bright. Julian adds one more compliment. Her eyes tighten for a blink. She asks the older man what he is reading. He takes a breath you can hear, names the author, asks how her week has been, then waits. She slows. Julian fills the gap with more praise. That night he sends a long text that says he had a great time and that she is special. In the morning she writes that next week could work. A week later she greets Julian with a quick hug that is all shoulder. To the older man she says, "See you at the bookshop that, if your time allows." Julian watches steam fade from his cup while the truth lands. He thought praise proved value. She treated praise like payment. If you could warn your past self before you bought her approval, what would you say? Be ruthless. I will rewrite it in a Machiavellian frame. Drop one short line, starting with, "Note to past me" in the comments. Machiavelli warned that people prize what asks something of them. Abundance sets a low price. Validation is sugar that melts on the tongue and leaves the body unfed. In the theater of desire, a mask that flatters too long becomes a mirror that shows need. Give a warm spark, that let the air cool, that light the room again. Rhythm seduces, floods drown. In 30 seconds you will see how withholding turns into signal and how small gaps make attention return on its own, starting now. He believed generosity proved depth, and that endless approval would calm her fear and build trust. She read generosity without edges as a man buying permission to stay, and she felt the calm as boredom, that a flat line that means nothing is wrong and nothing is alive, that comfort without tension asks the heart to sleep. He tried to remove doubt with praise, and he removed the story instead, that once there was no story, there was nothing to chase and nothing to remember the next day. That value slipped because effort became free. Tonight, give one earned compliment and then let it breathe when she teases that answer with a smile that does not explain. If anxiety rises, hold it like a weight and count to 3, that the next section shows how controlled silence creates gravity. Up next is controlled silence and unpredictability. You will see why withholding is not cruelty, that it is calibration, and why one quiet pause hooks the mind harder than a speech. Skip it, and you discount your attention. Stay, and you learn to prize yourself so that desire pays in full. 6. Controlled silence and unpredictability. The moment you punished silence, you punished desire. You did not lose her because you were quiet. You lost her because you filled every second before curiosity could breathe. Power is not the word that arrives first. It is the pause that makes the next word expensive. Controlled quiet makes them curious. Brooklyn laundromat, Sunday night, dryers spinning like planets. Ryan is 32, an EMT with tired hands. Kara folds a hoodie and asks what the patches mean. He answers fast, laughs at himself, then explains each one so nothing feels awkward. A silver-haired neighbor called Tease feeds quarters, watches the glass and says nothing. Kara glances at Tease and asks what he thinks of the neighborhood. He lifts his eyes, lets the hum stretch, then says that it is honest, that sometimes it lies. She smiles. Ryan tries to join with a joke, then adds a compliment. Her eyes sharpen for a second, then cool. Kara asks Tease if the cafe on the corner is good. He holds the pause, smiles with one side and says, "That depends." She bites her lip, then says, "Maybe we try it after laundry." Ryan texts later that night, "Delivered." No reply. Until morning. She writes that next week could work. At the machines, the truth lands. He thought speed created spark. She followed the man who made her wait. Machiavelli warned that the one who commands tempo commands belief. Silence that you own is presence at full voltage. Unpredictability is not chaos, it is shape. In the theater of desire, speak like a drummer, hold like a conductor, break pattern when prediction forms. Masks fall when timing cuts them loose, and fantasy rushes in to fill the space you leave on purpose. In 30 seconds, I will show you why silence is not rejection, it is gravity. You will see how a single unexpected answer turns her test into her pursuit. He believed quick reassurance proved care, and that constant clarity created safety. She read quick reassurance as fear and read constant clarity as cheap. He performed to erase doubt, and the performance made him common. She did not drift because he was unkind, she drifted because she could read him like a schedule. He confused noise with power. She felt power in the pause, and in the small turn she could not predict. This week, what boundary will you set that she cannot walk through? Say it out loud. I will show you how to enforce it with silence and timing. Tonight, use one clean test. When she teases, hold eye contact. Breathe. Then give one short answer that shifts the frame, something like "that is dangerous." Then let it live without an explanation. Offer one earned smile, then end the exchange while the energy rises so the mind keeps walking toward you after her feet leave. If your nerves scream, "good," that means the habit is breaking and leverage is forming. Up next is the final lock that makes the earlier tactics click. Miss it and the door stays open for anyone to read you. This is where everything comes full circle. What you just heard wasn't a list of cheap tricks or surface tactics. It was about reclaiming power through silence, scarcity, and strategic restraint. You saw how presence without noise becomes influence. You saw how holding back creates a chase, and how unpredictability keeps attraction alive. This isn't about being cold. It's about being untouchable. You don't need to chase to be chosen. You don't need to explain yourself to be remembered. Respect comes when your attention is scarce, and desire follows the man who moves slower but stands firmer. A few weeks ago, one of our viewers, Michael, a 41-year-old manager from Dallas, wrote to us. For years he had been the guy who texted back instantly, who filled silence with nervous chatter, and who tried to buy attention with compliments. But after practicing the strategies you just learned, slowing down, listening without hunger, and withholding validation, everything changed. His words carried more weight. The woman who once kept him at a distance leaned closer, curious, drawn in by the gaps he left. Michael told us, "The less I gave, the more she pursued. Mystery was my shield, and silence was my weapon." You could be next. Subscribe now, because the shift starts quietly, but it changes everything.